Tuesday, July 6th at 6 p.m. in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, the Stay Alive Literature and Step Group meeting at St. Paul's Church. Tonight's speaker is Mikey P. Please help me welcome Mikey P.
Hi, I'm Mike. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Mike.
I'm going to do my best to keep it in the bottle as well as not curse. That is both very hard for me because I actually really not a big fan of alcohol, but I have found relief from the bondage of self through Alcoholics Anonymous in the past. It has helped me before, and I find that this program works better than other programs I've tried. I have a sobriety date. It's February 23rd of 2026, so 4.5 months ago. I have a sponsor. I have a home group. And yeah, I was born in Austin, Texas, to a wonderful woman. She was an IV heroin user. I was her 8th kid when she was 24 years old. I had to be detoxed as a baby. I was a very unpleasant child, I think, as a result of that. And really, from a very, very early age, I just ran on self-will. If I didn't want to do something, I didn't do it. And if I wanted to do something, I did it. I didn't really care about consequences. You would think that I enjoyed getting in trouble and being problematic. I was at odds a lot with my mom growing up. We didn't get along too well because I was a behavioral issue. At home, in school, it didn't really matter. So it was always just my show at all times. If I liked a class, I would do well in it. If I didn't like a class, I didn't do my work because it didn't matter because I didn't want to do it. But growing up, I had like a pretty normal childhood. We went on like family vacations. My dad's a doctor. He always provided very well for us. We didn't really want for much. And it was good. It was a solid childhood. I can't really blame them for anything that I have done wrong in my life. They did their best. And when I was 13 years old, I tried alcohol for the first time and I hated it. It made me really sick and I didn't really like it. And I didn't really think about that time very much. And then when I was 14, I tried dry goods for the first time, and that's where it clicked. That just made so much sense. I wanted to do that every day for the rest of my life. It was just a relief it was a relief I didn't really know I needed, and everything else went out the window. I was into martial arts. I was into sports. I didn't care about that anymore. I just completely switched my friend group to accommodate what I wanted to do. And it quickly progressed. Before, I'd say 4 months after the first time that happened and it really clicked, I'd found my way into other things, and I ended up overdosing at school for the first time. I was 14 or 15. I was 15. And it just kind of happened, and then there was no consequences to it. They didn't, like, my parents they didn't say much about it. They didn't really know what to do, I don't think. I didn't have to go to counseling or anything. The school didn't do anything about it. So in my head, that's okay. I can just keep doing what I was doing. And I did. I continued on for the next 2 years doing what I wanted to do. When I entered my junior year of high school, I ended up getting expelled from school for a number of things. I was caught with substances on school property. I had felony vandalism, and they were going to charge me with all that. And for some reason they didn't, but it was enough for them to expel me. At least I was in private school, so they didn't really have much tolerance for the things I was doing at that point. And at that point there was somewhat of it wasn't even a consequence. It was an attempt to help me. I feel like it was a consequence at the time. I see it now differently. But my parents sent me to my first rehab. I went to White Deer Run. I was 16 years old, and it was awful. I did not like it. I didn't want to be there, but I did learn how to be way sneakier at that place. I used it as a learning experience. I met a lot of people who were way deeper into this than I was at the time, and they taught me things. They taught me things I could do, things I could try, and that's what I took from it. I did not want to be sober. I was forced to go. And I got out of there and I was put into alternative education, which is awesome for someone like me in that position. It's all the bad kids from all the public schools get funneled into this one school, and we all got to go to class together. And from those kids, I could pretty much get anything I wanted. If I asked for it, someone had it. And so things just kind of escalated from there. I ended up graduating high school a year early out of there, which was beneficial because I think if I had to go another year, I wasn't going to get my diploma. There was no chance. So I got that, and I, at some point in there, got my license and I got a job. So I was able to kind of do what I wanted. I had money for the first time, like really had money for the first time, and I was working full time, and I found a connection for things I wanted. And in July of 2016, I overdosed really badly for the second time. I ended up in the ICU for like a week. I was like hooked up to machines and stuff. I don't remember a whole lot of it, but I was there for 7 days. I know that just from being told. It didn't feel like 7 days, but from there, I got admitted to a psychiatric hospital, and I was not happy about it, but I was also 17 at the time, and I didn't want to sign releases to go to rehab. The wonderful plan I made up in my head was I'm going to stay in this psych unit until I turned 18 in 4 months. And I was going to sign myself out when I turned 18. I don't know if anyone's ever been to a psychiatric unit. It was like the 7th floor of a hospital. It was horrible. And I made it about 8 days before I was like, okay, I'll sign releases to go to rehab. And I held out longer than I think they thought I would hold out, but it was 8 days. And I signed releases for a treatment center called the Karen Foundation. It was like the antithesis of White Deer Run. It was fancy. They had all these fancy like options like acupuncture and hydrotherapy and like a cafeteria. It was like a whole college campus basically of a rehab. And I was in there for 4 whole months. 3 months, and I spent like a month in the wilderness because I wanted to leave, and that was my option to leave. So I signed up for wilderness, and I did that. And then I went back and finished another month. And from there, they got me into a program called Serenity Lodge. It was in the Scranton area. And I moved from Erie to Scranton, like permanently. The idea was I'd go to this halfway house. I'd live there for a while, and then I would get settled into the Scranton area. That was what it was pitched to me as, and I agreed. I didn't really have a choice, but I agreed, and it didn't sound that bad. It sounded like a fresh start in my head, and I used that pretty well, actually. They gave us a job. We worked at this diner. It was cool. I met a lot of good people there that I'm still in touch with to this day. They've helped me throughout my life since that point, and it was an overall good experience. I got into college from there. I actually got my associate's degree, not while I was there, but because I was there, for sure. And I strung together about 1.5 years of sobriety, doing the steps, working with a sponsor, going to meetings, doing service, commitments. It was good. It was overall a positive experience. It was definitely individualized. Like from other treatments I've been to, they were really anything goes as long as you stay sober, but it worked in a weird way. It worked. But I did stay sober, but I definitely didn't live spiritually. I kind of skipped over any step that had God in it. I didn't want anything to do with spirituality, and I still lived very dirty. I would use women. I would use gambling at the time. I was underage, but we were able to gamble there. We found our ways. Just getting obsessive about other things other than drugs and alcohol. And it just was, I would steal. It's just for the love of the game too. I didn't have a reason to steal. I had money, but it was just like to get some kind of dopamine release, some kind of thrill out of life that wasn't spiritual still. And due to not having a spiritual base, I just leaned on fellowship and I leaned on meetings, and that kind of started to fall off as I was out. I had my own apartment. I was doing what I wanted to do again, as I usually do. And I remember I was hanging out with a girl and she offered me a drink, and I didn't even think about it. I just said, yeah, I'll take a drink. And that started a really rough 7 years. It didn't always seem rough, but it was more rough than it wasn't rough. At around the same time that I gave up the 1.5 years of sobriety, I started working at a movie theater. and I met a woman. Her name was Tiffany, and we hit it off really well. We'd work really well together at work. We'd hang out outside of work, and we kind of built a relationship. And that was my out, basically. From I was in a sober house at this time. I was managing a sober house. I started seeing her, and we got an apartment together, and we used to party together. That's how it started. She introduced me to cocaine, which was became a major problem, not right away, but and that's what we did, and it was fun. And we kind of started building a life together, and eventually I proposed to this girl, and I was engaged, and we ended up getting married at some point. But during the building of that relationship, she settled down a lot. She wanted to just like have a life together, and I just wanted a continuous party. And we kind of hit at odds at that point. We had some strain. We went through with the wedding and everything anyways, but there was a lot of strain put on the relationship. I cheated, I lied, I used behind her back. She would see I'd use in front of her, and then I would use that she didn't know about. And I really just took advantage of her love and kindness for me, for sure. And we ended up getting married in August of 2023. And I was probably at the worst point I'd ever been at that point. I was heavy into addiction, and that ran straight through the end of 2023 into 2024. I don't remember a whole lot of 2023. It's just gone. Just using anything and everything to get out of self. At the beginning of 2024, an argument happened, and the argument ended in me agreeing to go back to rehab, which I did. I didn't want to be sober. Once again, it was a lot of outside forces telling me this is like what's going to be best. And I was just like, you know what? It's the path of least resistance. It's going to get people off my back. I'm going to do what I have to do to get people off my back. So I went to the retreat. It was in Ephrata. It's no longer around. And I stayed there for 26 days. I got myself out early. I talked the talk because I know how to talk the talk at this point. I refused to go to a PHP program, which was what was suggested. I was like, I don't need that. I know what I'm doing, as always. And I went home. And it wasn't like I expected it, which I should have not expected it to just be like, you're doing great. Like, we're here. Like everything's good now. That you're not, that you went to rehab. Good job. And it was not like that. It was like, there was a lot of work to be done to like fix my relationship with my wife mainly. And it's work I did not want to put in. So instead I did what I know how to do. And I started to use behind her back almost immediately. It maybe took a week. And I got caught because I ended up overdosing for another time. I don't even know where I was at that point. But she came home, she worked third shift, and she was home from work that night. I don't remember what night of the week it is, but it was a night she had off. And I don't know how she hadn't noticed at this point, but I've been on like a solid 7-day run. I was blacked out the entire week. I don't know what happened, but she said I just like collapsed and was not breathing. And she called an ambulance, and I was taken to a hospital. I was deemed a danger to myself and others, and I was put into another psych hold. And I I don't even know how it happened. I was really out of it for this, and I ended up agreeing from the psych unit to go back to treatment. I don't remember how that happened, but I did. And I ended up going to my fifth treatment, or my fourth treatment at this point. It was at Brookdale. It was a very, very nice facility. I actually knew a lot of people that worked there from my time at Serenity Lodge. A friend of mine, Drew, worked there. A guy named Scotty worked there. It was cool to have all these people that I knew, and I was happy to be able to be around them. It made it more comforting. And I felt like I was serious this time, but I really wasn't, because I knew in my head I had reservations. I knew in my head I wasn't going to be sober. I was just going to stop doing hard things, and I was going to just be a casual user this time as it goes. But I also agreed that I would do like what I was told. So from Brookdale, I did 30 days in Brookdale. That was in like March to April. And I then went to a PHP program called Mountain's Edge Recovery. It was kind of out in Scranton area, a little above. Scranton, and it was a really good program. I met a lot of cool people there. I, at first, was taking it very seriously, but I can only fake being serious for so long, and I got complacent there, and I was getting home passes. I had a car at some point, and on one of my home passes, I stopped and I got some dry goods, and I brought them back, and I used before I even got out of the program with my roommate, and I didn't get caught, which bolsters my ego that I can do what I want and I can get away with doing what I want, which seems to always be what happens. And I went back home, and once again, I don't know why I thought a second time it would be different. I was expecting, well, this time I did more time, so in my head I was like, I'm doing so good, I should just be forgiven for all of the wrongs that I had done. And once again, that is not how it went. It was like my still wife at the time wanted to go to marriage counseling. I didn't want to do that. I was supposed to go to an IOP program. I didn't do that. I did get a sponsor. Didn't get a home group, but I got a sponsor, and I started going through the book again. And on my own time, when my wife would go to work, I was still using. And I was like, I will just do both. This is going to work. I'm going to just do both. At night, when no one else knows and is around, I will do what I want to do. And when it's daytime, I will go to work and I will do AA and I will be sober. And it was going to work awesome. And it's not how it went. I did keep it to softer things. I didn't go back to using hard substances, but it was not enough. And I started having a real affair with a girl I knew in college, because that was exciting enough. That did it for me. I was like, this is fine. So I wasn't sleeping. I was doing what I did at night with that girl. And then during the day, I barely slept. I would go home, go to bed for like a couple hours, get up, go to work. And we just didn't really see each other. And I don't know how long I maintained that for. But eventually, I just decided that my wife was too heavy of a tether to reality in how it actually went. I just felt she was holding me back from what I wanted to do, which is use the way I like to use. And so I just kind of left. There was no divorce papers. There was no conversation. I just said, I'm not going to come home tonight. And I didn't. And we don't really talk to this day. Like minor conversations to settle like things that necessary had to be settled, like switching bills over to her name for the apartment and things like that. But to this day, there hasn't been like a real conversation between the two of us regarding this. There hadn't been a real conversation for months. And yeah, I left. I was like, I will figure it out. And so I started just kind of couch hopping between a few friends' houses. The girl's house, she had a messy situation herself, so it wasn't like a perfect option, but I would stay there sometimes. I'd stay at friends' houses. And that started a really, really rough year and a half. For the first time really in my life, I was an adult without a tether doing what I wanted to do, which is a horrendous storm to be put into. And I thought it was the best thing in the world. So I was using how I wanted to use. I did what I wanted to do, and my world got smaller and smaller and smaller, like incredibly small. By the last 6 months, up until February 23rd, when I went to rehab, most of my time was spent in a bathroom, just like I had a lawn chair in there. And it was, I sat in there, I had headphones on, and I got high however I wanted to. Whatever I wanted to do, that's what I did. And it got dark. It got incredibly dark. Until I ended up for a fourth or fifth time at this point, I had a pretty bad overdose on benzos and opiates, and I ended up in the hospital. I was at work. I fell out at work, and the next thing I remember was waking up in a psychiatric hold. And I don't remember being in the hospital at all that time. I don't remember being transferred to the psychiatric facility because it was far away. It wasn't like close by. And that I was kind of detoxed in there. I wasn't too bad actually in that sense. I had recently, before that happened, actually cleaned myself out. I fully went through detox at home, and then as soon as I felt better, I started using again. because I'm insane, I guess. And but I got detoxed in the psych unit, and this time was different because there was nobody around. I just was released on my own recognizance, and nobody was like jumping in to tell me to go to rehab, and nobody was like telling me I had to change anything. I had full option to just go back to locking myself up and continuing on how I was continuing on. And I had a little like moment of clarity, and I called a buddy of mine, my buddy Mike. He's been there for me before. He helped me get into treatments before. And he kind of just told me what to do, because I mean, I'm an adult. I know what to do at this point, but I needed someone to tell me what to do. And I ended up making a few phone calls, and I had a few options to go to treatment. I was still very self-driven at this point, so I was like, I'm not going today, I'll go in like a week. So that's what I did. I was like, give me till Monday. And it was weird. It was very odd because I didn't use mostly for those days. I generally stayed clean. I even went to like a concert at a bar and didn't drink because I was just, or use anything. I was just like, you know what? I'm burnt. Like, I don't know. I just went because my buddy asked me to go. It was his band playing. And I was like, yeah, I'll go. And I just stayed clean. And I don't know, something had flipped at this point where I was like, I'm burnt out. And Monday rolled around, and I kept to my agreement. I'd packed all my stuff. I'd gathered things from different people's houses that I had possessions at that I wanted to bring with me. And I packed everything that I planned to keep because I didn't have anywhere else to go afterwards. Anything I left behind, I told people, you can have it, you can sell it, I don't really care, it's your burden now. Just my things. And I went to my 5th rehab. It was Lake Ariel, which is pretty close to Scranton, so it was not far. It's like a 40-minute drive from where I was staying at the time. And it was my choice, which was weird because I would, at any point up until the day I got home and realized no one was going to save me, there was 0% chance I was going to rehab. I did not want to do that. If I was going to get clean, I was going to do it on my own. If something came over me to say like, hey, you got to do this. You're not going to do this on your own. And so I went to Lake Ariel. I did the 35 days there. For the first time ever in my life, I was honest with a therapist. I was honest to a degree with a community, but I was really honest in my one-on-ones. I like talked about things. I didn't just say what I thought people wanted to hear. I said things that actually bothered me and things that I should probably talk about that I know from studying psychology are important to talk about. And I surrendered to the point where I said, I will do whatever clinically is recommended, and I meant it. And that's how I got myself to this lovely area. It is a lovely area of Doylestown, Bucks County in general. They had a PHP program connected to Avenues. It's Avenues at Bucks. It's where I still am now. I'm in their IOP program. And I go to clinical, and I don't just sit outside. I sit in the groups, even when I really don't want to. Even when I feel like they're not helping or doing anything, I sit there and I just do what I'm told. And I continued to be honest with the counselor, and I got a sponsor here, and I'm going through the book, and I'm not saying what I think people want to hear. I'm just saying kind of what I feel instead of, because I just like to get by. I like people to not look at me very much and just like do the like proper thing. I know what they want to hear in rehabs, and I'm not doing that. I'm kind of doing what I think I actually need to do. I got a job that I start tomorrow. I'm excited about. It's a decent job. It's a warehouse job. That's what I was doing before, and I can do it. And I know I can do it, and I know I can show up better than I showed up before. But things have been a lot better. I'm a lot clearer mentally. I think it goes without saying. There's no way I would be less clear than I was before. I'm staying in contact with people. That's like really say my step one is like I've surrendered to the fact that my way wasn't working. My way was not working. It hasn't worked since I was 14 years old, and it's still not working today. And when I tighten my world to the tiniest little box. as I rejected spirituality before, I didn't really touch on this. I grew up very religious and it put me off to any kind of spirituality. I grew up in the Catholic Church and I hated it. And it made me just turned off to idea of spirituality because I connect spirituality and religion because they both use similar terms. And it's hard for me to disconnect those things, but I've been working very hard to disconnect those things because I know they're different logically, but they don't sound very different, so it's hard. But I've just allowed myself to go through the motions, at least, of like saying prayers. And really for me, I guess the God comes down to just taking direction, putting faith into other people who I have to believe have my best intentions in mind, where it's not just doing things my way. I'm doing things somebody else's way, anyone else's way. Not just like anyone, but people who have done this before, people who have been through the ringer and have gotten themselves out and live a better life today. Just taking their advice and doing what they tell me to do. And they told me to come to believe in a power greater than myself. So I'm working very hard to do that. And I think it rolls right into step 3, which is my making a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God. Somebody very smart told me my will is my thoughts and my life is my actions. And turning it over to the care of God would just mean doing it a different way than the way I think I should do it. And that is what I have been doing and what I plan on continuing on doing. I'm going to continue to go through the steps and try to be of service to other people and to help others where I can instead of living extremely hedonistically and selfishly as I have done for the past, my entire life, even before I started using drugs and alcohol. It's been my way. And it doesn't work. I've gotten myself in somehow not into legal trouble, but into just trouble. Like trouble is for myself. And by taking direction from somewhere else, maybe I can live a better life where that's not the result every time. That's really all I have.
Great work. Please help me thank Mike P again. You did